Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Shall we wait for a few more minutes before we start? Just three of us. You're speaking on mute, Rohini Mataji.
Mataji, we have to do 4.2148, is it? Last we saw?
4.2314. Maybe I'll start. We'll let devotees join as they can.
Yeah, I have also taken screenshot, but I'm not sure.
So, because I got the message.
So last time we finished till 4.23.13. That was the last we did with Satya Sundari Mataji.
Correct. So we are starting from 4.2314 to 16.
Okay.
So I got the message from Mataji. Maybe we'll get started as I think devotees are joining in. Om Jnanantimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Vena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guruho Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitantam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Tamsya He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Namari Priye Pancha Kalpatarupyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pravanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Kauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasa Adigaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you so much for joining in for today's Srimad Bhagavatam class. We are starting from Canto 4, Chapter 23, verse 14. So I will shortly share my screen. Please let me know once my screen is visible. Is my screen visible? People.
Not yet. Yeah. Now it's visible. Yes.
Is it okay? No? Okay. So
Yeah.
Okay. We'll start. Sampitya payum parshnipyam Vayum utsarayan shanaihi Nabhyam koteshvavasthapya Ura kanta shirshani. Anybody wants to recite the shloka again? It's very purifying hearing and chanting these shlokas. Anyone?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu. Please go ahead.
Pranam Prabhuji.
Yes, Hari Bol Krishna
Hare
Murti
Krishna
Prabhu.
Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu. Please go ahead.
Sampedya payum prashnibhyam vayumutsarayanchanaihe nabhyam košteshvavastapya rudra kanta shirshani.
Very good. Go ahead.
Translation by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada ki jai. When Maharaja Prithu practiced a particular yogic sitting posture, he blocked the door of his anus with his ankles, pressed his right and left calves, and gradually raised his life air upward, passing it onto the circle of his navel up to his heart and throat, and finally pushed it upward to the central position between his two eyebrows. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Shall I
Yes.
read purport, Prabhuji?
Just
One para.
trying to see. Yeah, I can read the first para, Prabhu. I
Okay,
was just
thank
looking
you.
if somebody else is also raised there.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Okay, go ahead with the first para.
The sitting posture described herein is called Muktasana in the yoga process. After following the strict regulative principles controlling sleeping, eating, and mating, one is allowed to practice the different sitting postures. The ultimate aim of yoga is to enable one to give up this body according to his own free will. One who has attained the ultimate summit of yoga practice can live in the body as long as he likes or as long as he is not completely perfect. Leave the body to go anywhere within or outside the universe. Some yogis have their bodies to go to their higher planetary systems and enjoy the material facilities therein. However, intelligent yogis do not wish to waste their time within this material world at all. They do not care for the material facilities in higher planetary systems, but are interested in going directly to the spiritual sky, back home, back to Godhead. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Pranams Prabhuji.
Thank you so much,
Shall I-
Prabhu.
Shall I
Anyone
continue?
wants? Yeah,
Shall
who
I
wants to?
continue?
Yes, Mataji.
From the description in this verse, it appears that Maharaja Prithu had no desire to promote himself to the higher planetary system. He wanted to return home immediately back to Godhead. Although Maharaja Prithu stopped all practice of mystic yoga after realizing Krishna consciousness, he took advantage of his previous practice and immediately placed himself on the Brahma Bhuta platform in order to accelerate his return to Godhead. The aim of this particular system of asana, known as the sitting posture for liberation or muktasana, is to attain success in Kundalini chakra and gradually raise the life from the Muladhara chakra to the Swadhisthana chakra, then to Manipur chakra and Anahata chakra, the Vishuddha chakra, and finally to the Ajna chakra. When the yogi reaches the Ajna chakra between the two eyebrows, he is able to penetrate the Brahmarandra or the hole in his skull and go to any planet he desires, up to the spiritual kingdom of Vaikuntha or Krishna Loka. The conclusion is that one has to come to the Brahma Bhuta stage for going back to Godhead. However, those who are in Krishna consciousness or who are practicing Bhakti Yoga, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, can return to Godhead without even practicing the Muktasana process. The purpose of Muktasana practice is come to the Brahma Bhuta stage, for without being on the Brahma Bhuta stage, one cannot be promoted to the spiritual sky, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 14.26. Shall I continue, Prabhuji?
Yes, Mataji.
Mamcha yo vyabhichareena bhakti yogena sevata sagunan samatitya tityan Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. The Bhakti Yoga, practicing Bhakti Yoga, is always situated on the Brahma Bhuta stage, from Brahma stage, Vrata stage, Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. If a devotee is able to continue on the Brahma Bhuta platform, he enters the spiritual sky automatically after death and returns to Godhead. Consequently, a devotee need not feel sorry for not having practiced the Kundalini chakra or not penetrating the 6 chakras one after another. As far as Maharaja Prutu was concerned, he had already practiced this process, and since he did not want to wait for the time when his death would occur naturally, he took advantage of the Sat Chakra penetration process and thus gave up the body according to his own free will and immediately entered the spiritual sky. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank you so much, Divya Mataji. Yes. So it's a very nice, detailed technical purport from Srila Prabhupada on how Maharaj Prithu gives up his gross body. Right? So in the previous shloka, we see that on the set of shlokas leading up to this one, we saw how Maharaj Prithu took up the he left for forest with his wife. He entered after after ruling the kingdom. He took the Vanaprastha ashram, kind of retiring to the forest, taking very humble and simple means, and focusing his attention towards the Supreme Lord completely and with a dedicated focus. And now he's given up his subtle body, he's giving up his gross body in this set of shlokas. So here, a yogic posture called Muktasana has been called out. Srila Prabhupada explains that in quite a bit of detail. Few things to kind of take away from the purport here is the fact that what is yoga essentially? Yoga is, in its purest definition, it's trying to be in union with the Lord, right? Where the soul tries to basically unite or tries to attach itself with the Supreme Soul, right? With the Supreme Being, the personality of God. That is yoga. The process of unification is called yoga. Most of the asanas, like Hatha Yoga, Hatha Yoga is one place where people do this breathing exercise so that they are able to, take up higher yogic postures where they can make rapid progress into how that union with Lord can happen eventually. Right? That's essentially the purpose of yoga. Now, the process has got diluted. People use it only for health benefit with absolutely zero attention to, basically have focus on the Supreme Personality of God. So now it has become more kind of an exercise or gymnastics or more than anything else, right? But the real purpose is union with the Lord. And here Muktasana has been called out as one of the postures where Prithu Maharaj is trying to force the life air from the lower chakras to higher chakras. Just to make it a bit easier for all of us to get a visual representation of what is being talked here. Here, there are a few things. First thing that is being called out is the fact that the yogis in the previous para leave their bodies to go to the higher planetary systems and enjoy the material facilities. Like it could be Swargaloka, where people can see a lot of opulence. There's always a festivity. There is women association. There is association of various sorts, exotic drinks, etc., etc. But intelligent yogis do not wish to waste their time. Why? Why would they not pay attention to these ways of entertainment or the ways to really enjoy? Why are they not wanting to waste their time? Anybody on the call wants to give an answer why they don't want to waste their time? Any answer is okay. We are all learning here. Yes.
This material world is dukkalayam and ashashvatam.
Correct. Very true. Very true. So the material absolutely spot on. Prabhuji.
There is no rebirth, Prabhuji. If you go to the Krishna Loka, we need not come back again to this.
Yes.
Whereas the other things we are we might come back. But
Yes.
Golok Vrindavan, we are permanent.
Yes, absolutely. So that's why they are the intelligent yogis. Absolutely spot on, Mataji. Both Krishnamurti Prabhu and Mataji, both you gave wonderful answers, Sindhu Mataji. So anybody who's doing any businessman, right? Does he look for short-term gains or long-term profits? So definitely, they stay invested for a longer-term profits. So similarly, intelligent yogis, they don't want to waste their time because anyway they have to come back. Once the karmas are over, you have to come back to the lower planets, again earn credits, and then go up and then come down. So rather than, and as Mataji and Prabhuji mentioned rightly, the four things still bother us. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi. Right? All the four problems still exist. We are not breaking the cycle of these four things. So it makes sense to look at things more strategically and move to Krishna Loka or back to Godhead. Next is, in this verse, as Prithu Maharaj prepares himself for this asana called Muktasan, he is already in Brahma Bhuta platform. What is Brahma Bhuta platform? Neema? Brahma Bhuta platform.
Where we are same to any type of feelings, like we neither feel sad or neither like the soul is not affected by happiness or any kind of emotion. That's
Yes.
one. And the second, in Bhagavad Gita, it also says that seeing everyone with Samadarshina, like with the seeing Lord in them.
Yes, yes. There are multiple shlokas there. Absolutely right, Mataji. Brahmabhuta means also someone who's free of lamentation, free of anxieties, right? And who's in supreme bliss all the time, right? He's in constant remembrance of the Lord. Brahmabhuta prasannatma na sochiti na kanchiti. There are multiple. Yes, yes, yes. So there are multiple shlokas in Bhagavad Gita which gives a better definition of Brahmabhuta. Absolutely spot on there. So he's already situated in that Brahmabhuta platform. And he now is proceeding into various asanas. So there is this Kundalini chakra, which is at the lower part of the spine. That chakra is lifted, that energy is lifted from the lower spine, and it is reaching higher parts of the human body, right, up to heart and then up to his head. So I just wanted to pull out this diagram just so that it becomes more visual. So the Kundalini chakra is in the Muladhara state. I'm not an expert here. I'm just trying to simplify based on what has been stated in the shloka. So now Prithu Maharaj is taking this particular energy from this chakra, which is Kundalini, the energy, from here to Swadhisthana, to Manipura, then to Anahata, which is heart, then Vishuddhi, then Agya. It's stated up to this point, right? Sahasrara will come later, but up to this point, Prabhupada calls out. So if you go here, you can see that Kundalini chakra is gradually raised to Muladhara chakra, which is essentially Muladhara chakra is here. Then it goes to Swadhisthana chakra. I'm sorry, I have to keep tabbing out and tabbing out. Swadhisthana is here like that, right? It keeps going up and up to the Agyana chakra between the two eyebrows. So it literally is up to, you can see the eyes, and just above that, this chakra is there, Agya chakra. Right? Now, at that point, when the yogi reaches the Agya chakra between the two eyebrows, he's able to penetrate the Brahma Randhra, or the hole on the skull, because we can see from this point onwards, it's just the skull. There's a small hole. I can't give an exact definition of that, but one thing which is relatable is that when a newborn is born, right, a newly born child, you will see that this part is very tender. You can literally touch, and it will probably, if you press hard, you should not. That's very, very tender, right? So there's a reference there to that particular area of the skull. And once you break through that hole in the skull, one can actually attain to higher planets up to the spiritual kingdom of Vaikuntha Loka or Krishna Loka. Right? The conclusion is, but the qualification for all this to happen is that one has to be first in Brahmabhuta stage, which has been called out in multiple places. Here also, right? So therefore, those who are in Krishna consciousness. Now, see, this is very difficult for us. First of all, nobody is so proficient in these yogic practices to lift the Kundalini chakra. It has to be done extremely carefully. I'm not sure if there are any modern practitioners who are expert in doing all this. They understand these chakras. They understand how this energy level has to be lifted. So what essentially Prithu Maharaj is doing by coming into the Muktasan means liberation. Mukta Asan, right? You're trying to liberate yourself. That's the essence here. So he's lifting the energy in the Kundalini, right? Basically from the lower chakras, gradually bringing it up. So that energy is helping him break open the skull and actually go to Krishna Loka. Right? That's what he's attempting to do through this yogic practice. And this kind of a practice is very difficult for all of us, right? We are not experts in any way, and we can't find people who are experts in this way, and it is very hard also for any one of us to achieve these kind of expert yogic practices. So for us, the point here is, for people who are in Krishna consciousness or those who are practicing Bhakti Yoga, which is the 9 devotional practices, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atma Nivedanam. These 9 practices can help us return to Godhead without even practicing the Muktasana process. Right? That's the alternate which is given to us. So the purpose of Muktasana is to come to Brahmabhuta stage. For without being on the Brahma stage, one cannot be promoted. However, in this particular shloka, there's also mentioned the Bhakti Yogi, right? The ones who follow the devotional practice is always situated in the Brahmabhuta stage. See, we can see how much of an effort it is there to even get to a Brahmabhuta stage in the traditional or in the other alternate paths that are given. But here, just by serving Krishna, using the 9 limbs of devotional service, one is already elevated to a Brahmabhuta stage. Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpati. So that's what Mam Chayo, and this commitment is not coming from anybody, but from Lord himself, right? The one who has created all of us, the one who has given the user manual, which is Bhagavad Gita, to all of us, he's certifying that, if you basically are situated in Bhakti Yoga, if you are following Bhakti Yoga, you are already in a Brahmabhuta stage, and you can definitely come to me, and you don't have to come back ever again, right? There is never a fall down for a devotee who gets to the Krishna Loka or Vaikuntha, right? So essentially, that's the guarantee which is coming. Consequently, a devotee need not feel sorry for not having practiced the Kundalini chakra or not penetrating the 6 chakras that we saw. As far as Prithu Maharaj was concerned, he had already practiced this process, and he did not want to wait for the time when his death would occur naturally. So he took advantage of this Satchakra process and gave up his gross body according to his own free will and immediately entered the spiritual sky. So essentially, Prithu Maharaj is an expert, right? He's one of the incarnations of the Supreme Lord. He's bestowed, he's empowered, he's got all those, aspects with him where he's an expert in the yogic practice, but not all of us, right? So for us, the 9 limbs of devotional service is what is being prescribed. And it starts with some of the basics like chanting, right? So how do we, there is a charge that we have to give to ourselves, like we charge our mobiles, right? So in the morning, we charge ourselves by putting our hand inside the bead bag and actually running through the beads and essentially powering ourselves in such a way that we can follow those 9 practices, the 9 limbs of devotional services very, very well, right? So it starts with that, and then it gradually spawns to other aspects of the devotional practice. And then, once we do this day in and day out, Supreme Lord himself is giving a guarantee that you will reach me without fail. So that's the essence of this. It's a very technical shloka from a perspective of, but the beauty of all the scriptures is that they'll give you all the paths, and it hardly is a very difficult decision to make, that which path we need to take, right? They give all the options, right? There is a mention of Muktasan here, and there's also a mention of 9 limbs of devotional service, and it's very easy for us to pick which one works for us in this yoga. Right. So, any questions here before we move to the next one? Go to the next one. Utsarpayam stutam murdhni kramena vesya nishpraha vayum vayo shitau kayam tejas ayuyujat.
I'll read, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Pranam. Sloka 15.
15.
Sloka no need, right?
If you want to, Mataji, if you feel comfortable,
Okay.
please go ahead. Otherwise, you can read that.
Sarvayam sutam murdhni kramene veshya nishprah vayum vayau shritau kayam tejas ayuyujat. Okay. Translation and purport by Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki jai. In this way, Prithvi Maharaja gradually raised his arrow of life up to the hole in his skull, whereupon he lost all desire for material existence. Gradually, he merged his arrow of life with the totality of air, his body with the totality of earth, and the fire within his body with the totality of fire. Purport: when the spiritual spark, which is described as 1/10,000th part of the tip of the hair, is forced into material existence, the spark is covered by gross and subtle material elements. The material body is composed of 5 gross elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether, and 3 subtle elements: mind, intelligence, and ego. When one attains liberation, is freed from these material coverings. Indeed, success in yoga involves getting free from these material coverings and entering into spiritual existence. Lord Buddha's teachings of nirvana are based on this principle. Lord Buddha instructed his followers to give up these material coverings by means of meditation and yoga. Lord Buddha did not give any information about the soul, but if one follows his instructions strictly, he will ultimately become free from the material coverings and attain nirvana. When a living entity gives up the material coverings, he remains a spirit soul. This spirit soul must enter into the spiritual sky to merge into the Brahman effulgence. Unfortunately, unless the living entity has information of the spiritual world and the Vaikunthas, there is a 99.9% chance of his falling down again into material existence. There is, however, a small chance of being promoted to a spiritual planet from the Brahman effulgence or the Brahmajyoti. This Brahmajyoti is considered by impersonalists to be without variety, and the Buddhists consider it to be void. In either case, whether one accepts the spiritual sky as being without variety or void, there is none of the spiritual bliss which is enjoyed in the spiritual planets, the Vaikunthas or Krishnaloka. In the absence of varieties of enjoyment, the spiritual soul gradually feels an attraction to enjoy the life of bliss. And not having any information of Krishnaloka or Vaikuntha Loka, he naturally falls down to material activities in order to enjoy material varieties. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji. That was very quick. Okay. So, essentially here, there are a few things that are mentioned here. The process of liberation is being called out, right? So we know that there is a spirit soul, which is covered by a subtle body, which is covered by a gross body. And the composition of both the subtle body and the gross body has been mentioned. The subtle body has got mind, intelligence, false ego. Gross body has got the earth, water, fire, ether, air. So these elements are constituting the subtle and the gross body. And Prithu Maharaj is like, peeling off these layers so that he can get liberated. And Prabhupada quotes an alternate, or rather, the word nirvana, which is often used in the faith of Buddhism, and how Lord Buddha also has given the same teachings or similar teachings, and finally there is liberation. However, there is a big disclaimer that is being made. So the process has been mentioned, that how liberation can happen, right? However, there is this destiny of impersonalists which has been called out here, right? That destiny is essentially merging into the Brahman effulgence, right? Where we know that there are 3 features of the Lord, which is essentially Brahman realization, Paramatma realization, and finally Bhagavan realization, correct? So when one's wants to merge with the Brahman, he's looking to merge into the impersonal feature of the Lord, which is the Brahman effulgence. Here, Prabhupada mentions that unless the living entity has information of the spiritual world and the Vaikunthas, there is a 99.9% chance of his falling down again into material existence. Why is that? Right? So this I researched a bit. There is a very good mentioned here also. There's a good mention of why that happens. But I could pick some alternate shlokas also, which I will read about here. Okay, so here, yes. Here, it mentions, without, anybody wants to read this para? It's very self-explanatory, but if anyone wants to.
Without the surrendering process. Sorry, yes,
go ahead.
Mataji.
Yeah, go ahead, Rohini
Yeah,
Mataji.
without the surrendering process, one cannot achieve liberation. The Bhagavatam says, those who are simply puffed up, thinking themselves liberated by some non-devotional process, are not polished or clear in intelligence, for they have not yet surrendered unto you. In spite of executing all kinds of austerities and penances, or even arriving at the brink of spiritual realization, in Brahman realization, they think that they are in the effulgence of Brahman. But actually, because they have no transcendental activities, they fall down to material activities. One should not be satisfied simply with knowing that one is Brahman. He must engage himself in the service of the Supreme Brahman. That is bhakti. The engagement of Brahman should be the service of Para-Brahman. It is said that unless one becomes Brahman, one cannot serve Brahman. The Supreme Brahman is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the living entity is also Brahman. Without realization that he is Brahman, spirit, soul, or eternal servitor of the Lord, if one simply thinks that he is Brahman, his realization is only theoretical. He has to realize and at the same time engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord. Then he can exist in the Brahman status, otherwise he falls down. Need to read this over and over again. This is a bit confusing.
Yes. So just to simplify, Mataji, what Prabhupada is saying here is a couple of things. I understand that Brahman becomes like a tongue twister, right? Who's Brahman, who's not Brahman? Okay, which Brahman is being talked about? So there are two Brahmans being talked about. The Supreme Lord, because even a living entity is also called Brahman. Supreme Lord is also called Brahman because there's a Brahman feature, right, of the Supreme Lord. Now, 3 or 2 takeaways from this para, which Prabhupada is trying to illustrate, is first thing is that when one goes through a Brahman realization, right, he essentially is realized that the fact that he is a Brahman who's basically merged into another Brahman, the Supreme Brahman, right? He's merged into that. But there is no service for that living entity there. There is no service, right? And there's just this realization that I am Brahman. But since a Jivatma's constitutional position is that of a servitude, that means where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu often says that Jivera Swarupoy Krishnera Nityadas, the constitutional position of a living entity is that he's a servitude, he has to serve Krishna, right? So unless it's like spirit soul's dharma, like for example, I'll give an example here. One definition of dharma is that, for example, water, by default, it gives coolness, right? Fire, by default, it burns. That is dharma of water, that is dharma of fire. Similarly, the dharma of living entity, that is something which is native to living entity, is the fact that he has to be a servant of Krishna. And when one essentially goes to a Brahman realization, it is not still in coherence with that constitutional position of the Jivatma, right? And therefore, what happens is, unless he is engaging himself in devotional service of the Lord, right, he will otherwise fall down. If he is not engaging in himself in the devotional service of the Lord, he is bound to fall down. Right? So here there are a couple of things that are mentioned, that there is no variegatedness, there is no rasa there, there is nothing that there's no exchange with the Lord that is happening. It's just like somebody is like attached to a tube light. I'm not saying that it's a very good explanation, but it's like someone attaching himself with a supreme light. That doesn't mean anything. There is no rasa exchange. There is no love that is exhibited. The constitutional position of the Jivatma is also not, it's not in coherence with that. So therefore, over a period of time, the Jivatma falls down from that position also. And therefore, Prabhupada, in this particular, the shloka from where we said, he said, therefore, that's why he says, there's a 99.9% chance that he will fall down into material existence. There is, however, a small chance of being promoted to a spiritual planet from a Brahman effulgence or the Brahmajyoti. This Brahmajyoti is considered by impulsiveness to be without variety because there's no exchange, there's no rasas, right? And the Buddhist considers just to be void. So there's just a very, very outside chance that someone can move upwards from there, right? We are not looking for that 0.01% chance or 0.1% chance. We are looking for 100% chance, right? So therefore, there's a repeated mention of doing bhakti yoga, right? In the absence of varieties of enjoyment, the spirit soul gradually feels an attraction to enjoy a life of bliss and not having any information of Krishna Loka or Vaikuntha Loka. He falls down to material activities in order to enjoy material varieties. Now, let me repeat this shloka, this explanation a bit. Now, when someone is in a Brahman realization, there is no activities to be performed, right? There's no 9 limbs of devotion. There is no deity worship. Nothing is there. So the Jivatma starts to feel or starts to miss those activities of enjoyment. So how does the Jivatma feel a sense of enjoyment? When, which is something which is mentioned repeatedly in pages of Bhagavatam and Srimad Bhagavad Gita, is the fact that when we water the root, which is the Supreme Lord, we automatically get nourishment. So when we try to satisfy the senses of the Supreme Lord, we feel happy in return, right? Since that exchange is not happy, that is the absence of such varieties of enjoyment, the spirit soul gradually feels an attraction to enjoy a life of bliss. If someone is not blissful, right, someone is like a particle in a supreme light, and there's no bliss, he starts to miss it because that's not his constitutional position. So he starts to miss that. And when he starts to miss it, what happens is that this bliss can be achieved in Krishna Loka and Goloka. And if that knowledge is not there, if the Jivatma doesn't know that, I can enjoy the supreme bliss in Krishna Loka or Vaikuntha, he will gradually fall down, he'll naturally fall down to material activities. That means he will fall down to a position where he wants to do lord over things. And that's why we are all here, right? We came here because we wanted to lord over things. So when the consciousness is not in the positive side, it automatically goes in the negative side. Okay, if I cannot enjoy by satisfying the Supreme Lord, let me enjoy myself at least, right? And therefore, the whole fall down to a lower planets starts to happen. Hope it's clear. I mean, the entire what Prabhupada is trying to say here, and why. And if we connect the two paras, the first and second, technical explanation is mentioned. The second para tells why is this not sustainable, right? Therefore, and that's the beauty of our scriptures. There is no information that will be concealed. Every information is revealed. And the pros and cons are also detailed out. And as intelligent shrotas, as intelligent readers, we need to, take the pick on what can work for us. So this covers shloka number 15. Go to the next one. Okay. This is going to be very technical. So let's see how we can break this down. Anyakase dravam toye yathastanam vibhagashah shitim ambasi tat tejas Adho vayo nabasyamam. Anybody wants to read the shloka again, please? Anyone? Just trying to see if anybody else raised their hand.
Shall I read, Prabhuji?
Yes, Divya Mataji. I am not sure if anybody is. Yes, go ahead, Mataji. Go ahead.
कान्याकसे द्रवं तोये यथा स्थानं विभागशः क्षितिम् अम्बासि तत्तेजसि आदो वायवो यो न बस्य अमुम्. Hare
Yes.
Krishna. Translation, somebody wants to read, Prabhuji?
Yeah, I'm just seeing if anybody wants to read. Anybody wants to read the translation?
I can read, Prabhuji, if there's no one.
Yes, yes. Go ahead, Rohini.
Hare Krishna.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. In this way, according to the different positions of the various parts of the body, Prithu Maharaja merged the wholes of his senses with the sky, his bodily liquids such as blood and various secretions with the totality of water, and he merged earth with water, then water with fire, fire with air, air with sky, and so on. Perfect. In this verse, two words are very important. Yatha sthanam vibhagasah. In Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, fifth chapter, Lord Brahma clearly explained to Narada how the creation took place. And he explained one step after another the proper divisions of the senses, the controller of the senses, the objects of the senses, and the material elements. And he also explained how they are created one after another. The air from the sky, the fire from the air, the water from the fire, the earth from the water, etc. It is important to know thoroughly the process of creation as it applies to this cosmic manifestation. Similarly, this body is also created according to the same process by the Supreme Lord. The personality of Godhead, after entering the universe, creates the cosmic manifestations one after another. Similarly, the living entity, after entering a womb of a mother, also collects his gross and subtle bodies, taking ingredients from the totality of sky, air, fire, water, and earth. The words yatha sthanam vibhagasaha indicate that one should know the process of creation and should meditate upon the creative process inversely, and thus become free from material contamination. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji. This is a pretty technical shloka because it goes back to the process of creation. A couple of things which have been mentioned here is how Prithu Maharaj expertly merged his senses with the sky, his body liquids and blood and secretions with the water, and then the water merges into fire, fire into air, air into sky, and so on, right? And the second bit, which is also called out here, is the fact that, which is very important, is this line. Take your attention to this line. That it is important to know thoroughly the process of creation as it applies to this cosmic manifestation. Similarly, this body is also created according to the same process by the Supreme Lord. So what the process of creation of the cosmic manifestation is exactly what applies to the body creation also, right? And the process of annihilation or the process of destruction is exactly inverse to that of creation, which is what is mentioned here. The words yathasthanam vibhagashaha indicate that one should know the process of creation and should meditate about the creation process inversely. That means just the tracing it back. If something, let's say, I'm just giving an example. If from A came B, from B came C, from C came D, as an example, the destruction process will be D to C, C to B, B to A. Just the reverse of that, just the inverse of that. So exactly it happens in the same order. And once one knows, which Prithu Maharaj is pretty expert at, he can become free from material contamination. So what I did was, basically, I took a screenshot from a book, Bhagavata Subodhini, which very nicely captures the process of creation. So I wanted to just present it here. So I'll just see if, let me see if this is visible. Is it visible? So we'll see that from Mahavishnu, comes Pradhana, right? Where all the living entities are in resting stage, and when there's time of creation, there's this Mahat Tattva, and then from that Ahankar comes, and from there, the three causes, Adi Devik, Adi Adhyatma, Adi Bhautik. The three things, these are the, they are the doers, cause, and the effects. And if you see, finally, you'll see from sound comes ether. I'm trying to just see, this comes up. Is it visible? I'll try to shrink this a bit. Yeah, I know the reading may be a little, is it better now? I'm trying to, okay. From sound comes ether, from ether comes touch, from touch, air comes, from air, form, fire. So if you remember some of our previous conversations by different speakers, so sound, you can only hear, the sense of ear becomes more important for sound, right? And touch means you can actually not just, if you look at air as an example, you can feel the sound of the air. When the air is blowing, you can feel the sound of the air. And you can also touch once the breeze comes and it touches our skin, we can actually feel the touch of that air, right? And then form. Fire has a form, right? It has all the three qualities. It has got touch, it's got sound, it's got form, right? If you look at water, additionally, other than sound, touch, form, it's got taste. And when you look at earth, it's got all the five elements: sound, touch, form, taste, smell, right? Because the moment the first rain happens, right, we are able to smell the earth, right? We are able to get the fragrance of the earth. Earth can also be tasted. There's a form to it. You can touch earth. And then, earth also, when there is something that, if you hit earth, of course, you get sound also, right? So the respective devatas are also called out. Dik devatas, eyes is Surya, skin is Vayu, like that, right? So these are all personified controllers, demigods of each of these sense of smell, eyes, etc. So each of these sense organs, there is a demigod who owns that bit. For example, if somebody is weak in his eyesight, as an example, there is a mention in Ayurveda and in Vedas that one needs to worship Surya, right, to have better eyes. Similarly, for nose, there are Ashwini Kumaras, for tongue, that's Varuna, so like that. So on and so forth. Now, I'm trying to tie this back to what is being mentioned. So this is the process of creation, right? The same, how it is reversely applied, and how Prithu Maharaj is, taking us back in the reverse process of creation. So let's say here, Prithu Maharaj says that his bodily liquids, such as blood and various secretions, merged with the totality of water. So let's just go back here to the diagram. So essentially, if you see, the gross body is, of course, the earth. It simulates the earth. But before that, before you give up the gross body, you have to take care of all the constituents of that, right? So taste is returning to water, right? The bodily constituents, which is going merging into water. Now water will get into fire. So if you go back to this shloka, it says water, earth with water. Sorry, I got that wrong. Earth with water. So if I go back to this, earth has merged into water. Okay? Water will merge into fire. So let's go back to this and trace it back. Yes, the earth has merged into water. Water has merged into fire. Fire has merged with air. So you'll see that fire is merged into air is merged into ether. So you can see that the process of destruction of the gross body is just the reverse of the process of creation. So this is the process of creation. The destruction follows the reverse order, which is exactly what Prabhupada calls out here. Right? Exactly that. So each of the body composition is returning back to its, the five elements, right? So whatever constituents of water is returning back to the water element. From water, it's merging from earth into water, and then from water into fire, fire into ether, into air, air into sky. Sky and ether are same, right? So just wanted to show you that diagram to put it in perspective by how and what is being talked about, right? So it's a bit hard to, this needs to be memorized, that if there cannot be an explanation for it. So just wanted to call this out so that it's easy for us to understand what's really happening here in this shloka. Yes, so this is what I wanted to leave all of us with. So here the destruction of gross body is being talked about, and how Prithu Maharaj essentially is taking the Kundalini Shakti, breaking open the whole of the skull, and how he is now meditating on the inverse of creation, which is destruction, and how each of the body elements are going back to the the beneficiaries of each of those, like that is being talked about here. Yes, so I'll stop here because it's only these 3 shlokas I'm supposed to cover. Thank you so much for your patient hearing. I'll attempt to answer any questions you may have. It's very technical, so I'll just try to see if I can. If I'm unable to answer, I'll take it offline and do some research and come back. So any questions, please do let me know. Thank you so much. If there are no further questions, yeah, we have 3-4 minutes ahead of time.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Ambika Mata, please go ahead.
So I have a question, Prabhuji. When we say
Yes.
that Lord is Satchitananda, which means he's bliss, right? And when we become one with Brahman, why is it that we do not experience bliss?
Yes, so that's what I think we discussed a bit, Mataji. Not sure at what point you joined. So what we said is that when one is in a Brahman realization, there's no variegatedness. There's no service to the Lord, right? One is not serving the Lord, right? The bliss for all of us, even in, let's even, not even going to Brahman realization, not even going to Paramatma or Bhagavan realization, even in current world, wherever we are in the material world, we feel there's a deep sense of satisfaction, right? When we are able to serve the Supreme Lord in any which way. Let's assume we had a very good chanting session. We were able to remember Lord like anything. Not a moment has passed by when we couldn't focus on the holy names. Or we were able to do excellent deity worship. We were fully committed. Our mind was totally engaged. That's a bliss that all of us, I think, there is no two thoughts that all of us would have felt a sense of bliss. A very good darshan, a very good way to serve other devotees of the Lord, right? Devotees of the Lord. So we feel a sense of bliss when we serve, right? And that aspect of serving doesn't happen in a Brahman realization. So we just, it's like merging into a light with absolutely, it's like merging into some void, right? What bliss can we enjoy there? So it's not blissful at all. So therefore, when it is not blissful, the Jivatma's constitutional position is such that a Jivatma is, as you rightly mentioned, Sachidananda Vigraha means what? Satchit Anand, right? So Anand, that aspect of bliss is missing for Jivatma. That's constitutional position of Jivatma. And why is that bliss missing? Because he's not serving the Supreme Lord, right? And when he searches for that bliss, he's not happy with that Brahman realization. And therefore, he comes down, and Prabhupada mentions in one of the shlokas, the previous one, 99.1% time that he will fall down because he's not getting an opportunity to serve the Lord. So he's not able to move up because he's not aware of the Krishna Loka or Vishnu Loka. Therefore, if one doesn't move up, it's very natural that one either stays there or goes down. So if I cannot serve the Lord, can I get served? Can I become the controller? And then that is the first thing that happens to the Jivatma for the fall down. Does it answer, Mataji, your question?
Yes, yes, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know these three shlokas are very philosophical, but I think one very important takeaway is that all of us have to be good in philosophy, because it's good to hear pastimes of the Lord, no doubt about that. They are very sweet. They are going to transform our hearts, no doubt about that. But to keep us steadfast in our spiritual practices, we need to understand the philosophy very well. Because let's say we get questioned by someone in the society saying, hey, why are you emotionally, calling out to the Lord? Is Lord even listening to you? Unless we are good at philosophy and we are able to quote shlokas, not to just answer that person, to convince ourselves again that, we are in the right path, then, our faith increases. So it's very, very important for us to, as much sweetness of the pastimes of the Lord that we enjoy, our philosophy also has to be very strong. So I just wanted all of us to just reflect on this point, right? Therefore, philosophy is also very, very. With that, I'll end the session. Thank you so much, Hare Krishna, and thank you so much for your patient hearing. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Gurudev ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much, Mataji.
Thank you, Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Bol.
Prabhuji.
Hare Bol. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.